The polished, reflective cerulean floor of the Carillion convergence shimmered with ambient light, mirroring the composed stillness of Commander Torvin's posture. Across the low, spiraling dais, the assembly of Carillion representatives, beings of pure, shifting light, held within intricate geometric frames of an unknown, dark material, remained unnervingly static. A profound quiet permeated the chamber, punctuated only by the subtle hum of the convergence's energy conduits. Torvin adjusted his stance, a movement that felt clumsy and oversized in the ethereal space. Beside him, Kalen, the mission's systems engineer, subtly rotated his shoulders, the almost imperceptible creak of his exosuit sounding like a geological shift in Torvin's perception. The negotiations concerning access rights to the bioluminescent flora of Cygnus X1 had reached an impasse, and a palpable tension as thick as a solar flare separated the two species. The sticking point wasn't the flora itself. It was the way humans express themselves. "We require further elucidation regarding subsection Gamma 9, Torvin stated, his voice carefully modulated. He consciously smoothed the natural variations in his tone, recalling Dr. Ilara Vance's briefing. "Their sensory perception is far more attuned to resonance than ours, Commander." One of the Corallians, its internal light matrix pulsing slightly, projected a series of intricate light patterns onto the dais, a complex sequence that the translation array interpreted as, "The subsection's intent is clear. Your query suggests an instability in your internal resonance." Kalen scoffed softly, a brief, involuntary expulsion of breath. Beside him, Alistair, the mission xeno-empath, placed a calming hand on Kalen's arm. The Corallian representatives pulsed with a slightly faster rhythm. "No instability," Torvin affirmed, his voice remaining even. "Merely a divergence in understanding. Perhaps a different phrasing would be beneficial?" He began again, enunciating with deliberate precision. But the frustration was beginning to bubble beneath his stoicism. He could feel the slight clenching of his fists, the subtle alteration in his breathing pattern. Unseen and unheard by him, these minute physiological changes were broadcasting significant information to the Corallians. "Your emanating frequencies have shifted," another Corallian representative, identified as Rhombus 9, the lead negotiator, projected. "There is a jaggedness to them, a disharmony. It is disruptive." "Disruptive?" Kalen muttered, the word slipping out before he could restrain it. He was growing increasingly impatient with the Corallians' seemingly fragile sensitivities. Back on Earth, a muttered word was nothing. Here, it was apparently a sonic assault. The effect was immediate. A wave of subtle light fluctuations rippled through the Corallian delegation. Their internal matrices seemed to intensify their glow, focusing on Kalen with an unnerving intensity. "Emission," Rhombus 9 articulated slowly, its geometric frame subtly vibrating. It carried a sharp resonance, a sensation of displeasure. "Is this a precursor to a discordant burst?" Alistair leaned closer to Torvin, his voice a hushed whisper. "Commander, their aversion response seems linked to certain vibrational patterns in our vocalizations. We must maintain absolute harmonic consistency." Torvin nodded, his mind working rapidly. He understood the logical basis for the Carillians' reactions. Their species, originating from a nebula of intense energy fluctuations, had evolved with an extraordinary sensitivity to subtle shifts in resonant frequencies. Sounds of distress, anger, or aggression in their environment often manifested as violent energy surges. Humans, with their incredibly broad spectrum of vocal expression, were essentially walking, talking sources of unpredictable sonic energy. "No discord intended," Torvin stated, consciously calming his internal state to project a more stable resonance. "Mr. Kalen merely expressed a mild frustration. It is a common human release mechanism. Release? A younger Corallian representative, its internal light flickering rapidly, projected, its light patterns conveying anxiety. The expulsion of air. With such percussive force? It resonates with the unstable plasma bursts that plague our outer territories. Kalen blinked, a mixture of exasperation and dawning comprehension on his face. His casual expression of annoyance had just been equated to a catastrophic energy event. The negotiations proceeded in this manner, a delicate tightrope walk around the unpredictable nature of human vocalizations. Every sigh, every muttered aside, every subtle shift in tone was meticulously analyzed and frequently misinterpreted by the Corallians. Torvin found himself consciously suppressing normal human reactions. Later, during a recess in the discussions, Torvin found Alistair meticulously reviewing the sensor logs. "It's remarkable yet profoundly challenging," Alistair remarked, rubbing his temples. "Their language is predominantly based on internal light patterns and subtle shifts in their resonant frequencies. Vocalizations, for them, are reserved for states of extreme energetic imbalance. Our casual deployment of them is overwhelming." So my expressing disagreement sounds like an impending energy surge, and Kalen's frustration sounds like a plasma detonation, Torvin summarized, a hint of dry amusement in his voice despite the seriousness of the situation. Alistair offered a weary smile. "Essentially, yes. And let's not even delve into the complexities of laughter." "The laughter?" We played them a recording of human comedic performance, hoping to build rapport. They were deeply unsettled. Torvin frowned. "Why?" They perceived it as a cascade of uncontrolled energy discharges, a collective loss of harmonic integrity. The explosive bursts of sound, the absence of a discernible threat, the sheer illogicality of it unnerved them. They couldn't comprehend why we would generate such volatile emissions without an imminent danger. The following day, the negotiations took an unforeseen turn. A critical piece of equipment malfunctioned, a vital energy stabilizer sputtering and emitting a series of erratic hums and clicks. Kalen, his usual laid-back demeanor replaced by intense focus, worked with frantic speed to diagnose the problem. His muttered curses, usually directed at uncooperative technology, were now tinged with genuine alarm. Blasted. The energy conduit. It's fluctuating wildly. Power levels are unstable. The Corallian delegation, witnessing Kalen's distress, reacted instantly. They recoiled, their internal light matrices flickering erratically, displaying a clear aversion response. The sounds of Kalen's struggle, the urgency in his voice, the frustrated grunts as he wrestled with the malfunctioning device, triggered a deep-seated fear within their energy-sensitive physiology. Rhombus 9, its geometric frame vibrating rapidly, projected a series of rapid, fragmented light patterns, an expression of pure, unadulterated alarm. Several of the younger representatives began to drift backward, their forms flickering as they moved with uncharacteristic haste. Torvin watched in stunned silence. They had been so meticulous in suppressing the sounds of anger and aggression, yet they had completely overlooked the impact of human fear and concern. "Kalen, status report," Torvin commanded, his voice sharp and commanding, a tone he typically reserved for critical emergencies. "The tertiary regulator is failing, Commander. We need to initiate a manual energy shunt," Kalen yelled back, his voice strained with urgency. The Corallian representatives pulsed more rapidly at the increased volume and panicked tone of Torvin's voice. They were witnessing the sonic manifestation of a potential energy catastrophe, amplified by the raw, unfiltered emotion in the humans' voices. It was a symphony of energetic instability, a concert of impending system failure, all emanating from the beings they were attempting to negotiate with. Then, with a final, forceful movement, Kalen managed to engage the manual shunt. The erratic sputtering of the stabilizer ceased, replaced by a steady, resonant hum. Kalen released a long, relieved sigh, a sound that, to the Corellians, likely sounded like the dissipation of a dangerous energy surge. The silence that followed was charged, thick with unspoken fear and misunderstanding. Rhombus 9, however, slowly stabilized its form, its internal light matrix pulsing steadily as it processed the situation. Distress emissions, it projected hesitantly, the translation array struggling to convey the nuance. They indicated an energetic imbalance, but the imbalance was internal to your technology. Torvin nodded slowly, a dawning comprehension washing over him. The Corellians weren't solely reacting to anger. Any strong emotion, particularly those associated with danger or instability, triggered their deeply ingrained aversion responses. Affirmative, Torvin confirmed. We experienced a technological anomaly. Mr. Kalen was expressing his concern regarding the potential repercussions. A peculiar sequence of light patterns emanated from Rhombus 9, a slow, rhythmic pulse that Alistair identified as a form of deep contemplation. So, your fear emissions are not always a precursor to external energetic aggression? No, Torvin replied. Sometimes they are simply expressions of concern for our own well-being or the integrity of our surroundings. A flicker of something akin to understanding crossed Rhombus 9's light matrix. And the percussive vocalizations you refer to as laughter? Torvin hesitated. That is more nuanced. It is an expression of amusement, joy. Joy? Rhombus 9 repeated, the word sounding alien even through the translation array. A state of being, devoid of discernible energetic necessity? From your perspective, perhaps, Torvin conceded, but for us it is. A release, a means of processing positive energetic states. The silence returned, but this time it carried a different weight. The tension hadn't entirely vanished, but a new element had entered the equation, a tentative, nascent understanding. The sheer range and expressiveness of human vocalizations were still unsettling, but perhaps, just perhaps, the Corellians were beginning to comprehend that these emissions weren't always what they seemed. The people who had joined the underground in 1951 weren't always what they seemed. The path to genuine interspecies communication, Torvin realized, wouldn't simply involve translating words. It would require navigating the terrifying, illogical, and profoundly human symphony of sound.